You think you know humanity's fate. We dream of starships piercing the void, of colonies stretching across alien worlds, of our species, bold and relentless, carving our name into the fabric of the cosmos. But what if that's not our story at all? What if our future isn't about conquering the stars, but about abandoning them? 3 weeks ago, near the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, a mining expedition discovered something impossible. A data crystal. Not human. Not from any civilization we've ever encountered. And when we finally cracked its encryption, we found something that changed everything we thought we knew about ourselves. This isn't the archive of an alien species observing humanity. This is humanity, as observed by something far older, far stranger, and far more patient than we could have imagined. What you're about to witness is a cosmic autopsy, the final testimony of a species that conquered technology, tamed their own world, reached for the heavens, and then simply vanished. Not destroyed, not conquered. Just gone. Welcome to the archive. Welcome to the truth about what we became when fear became our only legacy. Captain Sarah Venn wasn't looking for history when her drill bit struck the crystal. She was looking for platinum, rare earth minerals, the mundane treasures that keep humanity's orbital stations humming and our Mars colonies fed. The Venture 7 mining platform had been stationed in the asteroid belt for 8 months. Routine work, boring work, the kind of assignment you take when you've got 5 years left before retirement and no interest in adventure. But the drill didn't hit platinum that day. The sensors went haywire first, energy signatures that shouldn't exist, radiation patterns that physics said were impossible, and then, when the debris cleared from the drilling site, they saw it. A crystalline structure, roughly hexagonal, about the size of a human torso, perfectly smooth, and it was glowing with an internal light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Sarah's first report to Earth Command was brief. We found something. Don't know what. Definitely not natural. Requesting immediate science team and full quarantine protocols. It took 3 days for the science team to arrive from Luna Base. Dr. Marcus Chen, xenoarchaeologist, Dr. Amara Akafer, quantum physicist, and a linguistics AI collective called ROSETTA-9, designed specifically for first contact scenarios. They set up their equipment in the cargo bay of Venture 7, spectrometers, quantum scanners, isolation fields, every precaution humanity had developed for encountering the unknown. And then they tried to understand what they were looking at. Dr. Chen's voice log from day 1 stated, "The crystal's composition is challenging our understanding. It's not made of matter as we define it. Quantum states are fluctuating in ways that suggest it exists partially outside our dimensional framework. Age dating is inconclusive because it doesn't decay. It just is. If I had to guess, I'd say this thing is old, really old, older than our solar system." Dr. Akafer added her observations. The energy signature is the interesting part. It's not radiating, it's transmitting, like a beacon but not broadcasting outward. It's calling to something, or waiting for something to call to it. Marcus thinks it's a message in a bottle. I think it's a gravestone. ROSETTA-9's multiple overlapping tones created a single voice as it reported, pattern recognition complete. The internal structure contains data, vast amounts of data, encoded in 11-dimensional matrices. We estimate 847 trillion terabytes of information compressed into quantum superposition states. This is not a message. This is a library. We are attempting decryption now. The decryption took 16 days. 16 days of the best human and artificial minds working in concert, peeling back layers of encryption that seemed almost playful. Like the creators wanted the data to be found eventually, but only by someone clever enough to deserve it. And when they finally broke through the last layer, the cargo bay filled with light. Not just light, holographic projections, three-dimensional, photorealistic, moving through the space like ghosts. Sarah Venn stumbled backward, hand instinctively going to the plasma cutter on her belt. Chen's jaw went slack. Akafor started laughing, that slightly hysterical laugh you make when your entire worldview shatters. Because what they were seeing was impossible. Cities, human cities, but not human cities. The architecture was right, but wrong. Like someone had studied Manhattan and Tokyo and Mumbai and then recreated them from memory, getting the broad strokes correct but the details subtly off. Spaceports that were too large, designed for ships that humanity hadn't built yet. Orbital elevators stretching into skis the wrong color. And people, thousands of people, millions of people, moving through these strange familiar spaces, wearing clothes that fashion hadn't invented, speaking in voices the archive translated into perfect English. Chen asked, "What are we looking at?" ROSETTA-9 responded, "Analysis suggests these are records, historical documentation. The crystal is showing us, humanity, but not our humanity, not our timeline. These are projections, possibilities, or memories of futures that never happened." Akafor whispered, "No, look at the timestamp. Lower right. That's not our calendar system, but the AI is translating it. These dates are thousands of years in our future. This isn't a projection. This is what we become, or what we could have become." Sarah Venn took a step closer to one of the holographic figures, a young man, maybe 20 years old, standing at the viewport of what looked like a colony ship. His face was excited, hopeful. He was looking out at a planet, emerald green, 3 moons, completely alien, with the expression of someone seeing their dream made real. And then the hologram flickered. The young man's expression changed. The hope drained out of his eyes like water through cracked glass. He turned away from the viewport. His shoulders slumped, and then he vanished, replaced by another scene. An empty ship. No crew. Just corridors and empty stations and the soft hum of life support maintaining an environment for people who were no longer there. And then they heard the voice. Not human. Not anything close to human. A sound like glaciers grinding, like solar winds across gas giants, like the echo of gravity wells in deep space. But ROSETTA-9 translated it, and the words appeared in the air. "You have found the memorial. You have opened the testament. We are the witness collective. We are the chroniclers of silence. For 7 million cycles, we have traveled the spiral arms, documenting the rise and fall of thinking species. We have seen empires of light span galaxies. We have watched civilizations transcend into forms beyond matter, but never, in all our wandering, have we seen a species do what humanity did. Never have we witnessed a civilization defeat itself with nothing but its own fear. This is the archive of humanity's retreat. This is the record of the species that chose darkness over stars. Let us show you what you became. Let us show you how fear became your only legacy." The cargo bay disappeared, or rather it was still there, but now it was also somewhere else. The holographic projections weren't just images anymore. They were environments, immersive, overwhelming. Sarah and her team were standing in the archive itself, surrounded by 7 million years of alien observation, and every single record was about them, about humanity, about what we could have been, and about what we chose instead. Dr. Chen's hands were shaking. "How do we even start?" ROSETTA-9's voice was quieter now, almost reverent. "The archive has organized itself chronologically. It wants to tell us a story, our story, beginning with what it calls the Great Silence." Sarah Venn took a deep breath. She'd come here looking for platinum, for mundane metal to fund mundane lives. Instead, she'd found the obituary of her entire species. "All right," she said, her voice steady despite everything. Show us what happened to humanity." And the archive began to speak. The archive showed them the beginning, not our beginning. Humanity had already been spacefaring for over a century by the time this story started. Mars was colonized. Luna City had 3 million permanent residents. The asteroid belt was dotted with mining platforms and research stations. We were a species ascending. The archive's records showed the Earth of 2157, a world that had survived its own near-death and emerged transformed. Climate crisis averted through centuries of hard work. Fusion power feeding cities that gleamed like jewels. A humanity that had learned, painfully, to cooperate. We were ready for the stars. The first colony ship, Pathfinder, launched in 2161. Destination, Proxima Centauri b 4.2 light-years away. A journey that would take 40 years even with nuclear pulse propulsion. 5,000 colonists in cryosleep. Seeds of Earth biology. Digital libraries containing all of human knowledge. The archive showed the launch ceremony. Mexico City Spaceport. 10 million people watching in person, 4 billion streaming worldwide. President Elena Vasquez gave a speech that Sarah could hear echoing through the holographic recreation. Today, we don't just reach for the stars. We grasp them. We make them ours. Humanity is no longer bound to one world, one system, one fate. Today, we become something greater. Today, we become eternal. The crowd erupted. Humanity was ecstatic. This was our destiny manifesting. But the archive fast-forwarded, and Sarah watched as the celebration curdled into something else. 4 years after Pathfinder's launch, deep space monitoring stations began picking up something strange, not from Proxima Centauri. Pathfinder was still 36 years away from its destination. These signals came from everywhere and nowhere. Faint, inconsistent, like whispers at the edge of hearing. Dr. Acaffer leaned closer to the holographic recreation, her physicist's mind already analyzing. What are they detecting? The archive answered by showing them the data. Waveforms that twisted in impossible directions, frequency patterns that seemed to encode meaning, but refused to resolve into anything coherent. The signals weren't regular. They would appear for days, then vanish for months. Radio telescopes would catch them coming from one sector of space, then pick up seemingly identical patterns from the opposite direction. It was as if something vast was moving through the cosmos, breathing static into the void. Humanity's best minds worked on the mystery. AI collectives crunched the data. Every major space agency deployed additional sensors. Religious groups declared it proof of divine contact. Skeptics called it cosmic noise, meaningless as the hiss of background radiation. But the signals persisted. And slowly, imperceptibly at first, they began to change. Dr. Chen observed the archive. Look at the timestamps. The frequency of signals increases over time. They're getting stronger, closer. ROSETTA9 noted, not closer, more insistent, like something calling or warning. The archive showed humanity's response. More colony ships were built. Hope's Dawn launched in 2167, targeting Tau Ceti. New Horizon followed in 2169, aimed at TRAPPIST-1. Orbital shipyards ran 3 shifts, churning out vessels designed to carry humanity's eggs to as many baskets as possible. It was logical. If Earth faced some unknown threat, spreading out was the obvious strategy. But the archive knew something that humanity in those years didn't yet understand. The threat wasn't coming from outside. The cosmic event. The archive didn't have a name for it. Neither did humanity. It wasn't an explosion or an invasion or any of the apocalyptic scenarios that science fiction had prepared us for. It was simpler than that. And so much worse. On March 15, 2172, at 03:47 Universal Time, every deep space sensor in the human network detected the same thing simultaneously. Nothing. Not just silence. Absence, like a wound in space itself. A region of the cosmos roughly 17 light-years across where every wavelength went dead. Radio, X-ray, visible light, gravitational waves, all of it just stopped, as if a sphere of absolute nothing had opened up in the fabric of reality. And then, 7 minutes later, it closed. No explanation, no warning, no secondary effects, just 17 light-years of space that had been perfectly normal, then became a void, then became normal again. Except it wasn't quite normal. The archive showed Sarah and her team the emergency scientific summit convened 3 days later. 1,200 of Earth's finest minds gathered virtually, trying to make sense of the impossible. One scientist stated, "We've analyzed the sensor data from 40 different stations. They all confirm the same thing. For 7 minutes, that region of space didn't exist. Not just empty, non-existent, like it had been deleted from reality." Another asked, "But what caused it? A new physics phenomenon, some kind of exotic matter event?" A third scientist, voice trembling, suggested, "Or something did it, deliberately." Silence in the virtual assembly, because that was the question no one wanted to ask. Was the cosmos empty, or was it full of things humanity couldn't comprehend? The archive documented the global response. Panic was suppressed by governments, but fear spread anyway. Religious movements exploded in popularity. Doomsday cults predicted the end. Scientists urged calm but offered no answers. And the whispers in the dark continued, fainter now, or perhaps humanity had just learned to stop listening. The archive fast-forwarded through the next 5 years. Sarah watched humanity transform like a flower closing at dusk. 2173, New Horizons construction halted indefinitely. Budgetary concerns, the official statement said, but the workers knew better. They'd seen the fear in the administrator's eyes. 2174, contact with Pathfinder remained normal. The ship was still 31 years from Proxima, but no new colony ships entered construction. The orbital shipyards repurposed themselves for defensive satellites. Against what? No one would say. 2175. The Mars colonial government petitioned Earth for permission to build a self-sustaining military fleet. Permission denied. Mars complied reluctantly. 2176. The first colony actually canceled itself. Titan Station, Saturn's largest moon, voted 87% to begin gradual evacuation back to Earth. "We just don't feel safe out here anymore," the station director's resignation statement read. "Space feels crowded, even though we can't see what's crowding it." Dr. Acaffer watched the archive, disturbed. They were running, but from what? Nothing had attacked them. Nothing had even communicated. They were running from their own fear. But the archive showed that it went deeper than simple fear. The whispers had stopped in 2176, completely. The cosmos went quiet. Monitoring stations reported nothing but the normal background radiation of empty space. Humanity should have been relieved. Instead, the silence felt like held breath. Like something vast had noticed us and was now watching to see what we'd do. 2177 was the year of the Great Debate. Pathfinder was now 25 years from Proxima Centauri. 5,000 sleeping colonists, dreaming of alien soil, completely unaware of what was happening back home. Earth had the capability to send a signal, wake the crew, and order them to turn back. The vote took place in the United Nations Assembly. The archive showed Sarah the floor debate, hours of passionate argument compressed into agonizing minutes. One advocate argued, "We cannot abandon our destiny because of one unexplained event in some radio static. Our ancestors would be ashamed." Another countered, "Our ancestors didn't have evidence that the universe contains forces beyond our comprehension. This isn't cowardice, it's survival." A third voice added, "But survival as what? If we retreat from the stars, are we even still the species that dreamed of reaching them?" The vote was close. 54% to recall Pathfinder. The signal was sent. a laser communication pulse traveling at light speed carrying a single message. Turn back. By unanimous decision of humanity, the Proxima mission is cancelled. We're coming home. It would take 4.2 years for the message to reach Pathfinder. 4.2 years for them to learn that humanity had given up. The archive accelerated again, showing Sarah the domino effect. 2178, Luna City's population began to decline. People moved back to Earth. Better opportunities, they said, but everyone knew. 2179, the Mars Colonial Council declared independence, refusing to accept Earth's growing isolationism. 6 months later, they rescinded the declaration. The pressure from Earth, economic, political, psychological, was too great. 2180, Hope's Dawn en route to Tau Ceti for 13 years received its recall order. The captain, Elena Torres, sent back a single message. We refuse. We will complete our mission. Earth cut all communication with the ship. They would never speak again. 2181, the last mining platform in the asteroid belt shut down. Sarah felt a cold recognition. That was the belt her own platform would later work in, centuries hence. The archive was showing her the graveyard she'd unknowingly inhabited. And through it all, the cosmos remained silent. No more whispers, no more void events, just stars and darkness and the terrible, infinite quiet. Dr. Chen's voice was soft, horrified. They weren't running from danger. They were running from uncertainty, from the unknown itself. The archive voice responded, vast and sad. Correct. Humanity encountered the fundamental question all species must face. Are we alone or are we surrounded? Your kind could not tolerate existing between those two possibilities, and so you chose a third option. You chose neither. You chose to stop asking. The archive showed them the moment it became official. The Global Unity Summit. Every nation, every colony, every human settlement from Earth to the Kuiper Belt. The resolution was simple. Humanity will consolidate its presence within the orbit of Mars. All outer system installations to be decommissioned within 10 years. All colony ships to be recalled or disavowed. Humanity returns home. The vote, 89% in favor. They celebrated. Sarah watched the holographic crowds cheering in the streets of Shanghai, New York, Sao Paulo, Luna City. People cried with relief. We were safe. We were together. We didn't have to face the dark anymore. But in the archive's recreation, Sarah could see what those celebrating crowds couldn't. The darkness wasn't gone. They just agreed to stop looking at it. The archive showed one final scene from this era. Pathfinder received the recall message after 4.2 years of travel. The ship was now 21 years from Proxima Centauri, almost halfway to its destination. The captain, James Okoro, called an assembly. All 5,000 colonists woken from cryosleep for the first time since launch. Sarah watched him give the speech. An old man now, ship time had aged him while Earth moved on, standing before thousands of confused, frightened people. I have been ordered to tell you that humanity has decided we are not brave enough for the stars, that the unknown is too frightening, that we must retreat to the cradle and pull the blankets over our heads. Earth wants us to turn around, to abandon everything we left for, everything we dreamed of. Silence in the assembly. I will ask you to vote. Do we obey or do we continue? The vote wasn't even close. 92% chose to continue. Captain Okoro's final message to Earth was 3 words: we go on. Earth's response: then you go alone. The archive showed Sarah what happened next. Humanity contracted. Like a dying star collapsing inward, we pulled ourselves back from the void. Mars became the frontier. Earth became the center. Everything beyond was abandoned. The Great Silence wasn't something that happened to us. It was something we chose. And in the archive's vast database, the Witness Collective recorded it all. their ancient patience cataloging every moment of humanity's retreat. They had seen species fall to war, to plague, to cosmic disasters, but they had never seen a species fall to its own fear of the unknown. We were unique that way. Lucky us. Sarah Vin looked at Dr. Chen and Dr. Akafer. They were all thinking the same thing. This was just the beginning of the story. If humanity retreated from the stars in the 22nd century, what happened in all the centuries after? What did we become? Show us, Sarah said to the archive. Show us what we left behind. And the archive obliged. The archive took them to the graveyards. Not graveyards of people, though those existed too. Graveyards of potential, of dreams made real and then deliberately killed. The holographic environment shifted, and suddenly Sarah and her team were standing on the surface of Titan. Or what had been Titan Station. The archive's recreation was perfect. Sarah could almost feel the cold through her suit, though she knew she was still in the cargo bay of Venture 7. The orange-brown sky of Saturn's largest moon stretched above them. Methane lakes lapped at shores of water ice that was harder than granite in the -179-degree cold. And everywhere the ruins. Titan Station had been humanity's proudest achievement before the retreat. A completely self-sustaining colony of 50,000 people, living in pressurized domes that dotted the moon's surface like blisters of light against the dark. The archive showed them what it had looked like at its peak. A thriving city, greenhouses growing food under artificial suns, children playing in low-gravity parks, scientists conducting research that would have transformed human understanding of exotic chemistry. Then the archive showed them what remained. The domes had been deliberately vented when the evacuation concluded. No point maintaining pressure for empty buildings. The structures still stood. Titan's atmosphere, though thick, was gentle compared to Earth's weather, but they were husks now, dead things. Sarah walked through one of the residential sections. The archive's sensors had somehow captured everything in perfect detail. Apartments with furniture still arranged, children's toys on floors, photos on walls showing families who'd believed they were building something permanent. All of it covered in a fine layer of hydrocarbon snow. Dr. Akafer's voice was tight. Why leave it like this? Why not dismantle everything, take the materials back to Earth? The archive voice answered. They could not bear to. This is the pattern we observed. Humanity did not merely retreat, they fled, and one does not pause to pack carefully when fleeing. The archive showed them other sites. Ganymede Research Station, once the prime location for studying Jupiter's magnetosphere, now a cluster of buildings slowly being crushed by ice as the moon's surface froze and refroze over the centuries. Ceres Industrial Complex, where humans had mined rare elements from the dwarf planet's interior, now just open pits and abandoned processing facilities, machinery frozen mid-operation, as if everyone had simply walked away in the middle of their shifts. But the worst was Victoria Colony. Venus. Humanity had actually colonized Venus, or rather, Venus's upper atmosphere. Floating cities suspended 50 kilometers above the hellish surface, where the temperature was Earth-like and the pressure manageable. It had been considered impossible until we did it. 60,000 people living in the sky, mining the atmosphere for resources, conducting research that Earth-based scientists could only dream of. The archive showed Sarah the evacuation. Unlike the other colonies, Victoria didn't have time for an orderly shutdown. The population voted to leave and they left fast. Within 6 weeks, every single person was gone. The floating platforms were left to autonomous systems. For a while they kept working. Years, decades. The archive showed Sarah a time-lapse of the city drifting through Venusian clouds, empty but maintained, lights still burning, life support still running, waiting for residents who would never return. Then the systems began to fail. Without maintenance, The floating cities gradually lost altitude. The archive documented their descent in excruciating detail, kilometer by kilometer, sinking toward the surface where temperatures reached 462 degrees Celsius and pressure could crush a submarine. The last platform fell in 2267, 85 years after evacuation. The archive showed its final moments. A massive structure the size of a small town, its automated distress signals still broadcasting, sinking into clouds of sulfuric acid, then into the crushing heat below. And then nothing. Victoria Colony was gone, as if it had never existed. Dr. Chen watched shaken. Did anyone on Earth even notice? When it fell, did they care? The archive voice stated, no one was watching. By 2267, humanity had decommissioned its deep space monitoring network. You had turned your sensors inward, toward Earth, toward safety. The fall of Victoria Colony was recorded only by our instruments. But the most tragic sight the archive showed them was Mars. Because Mars held out the longest. The Martian colonial government had declared independence in 2179, remember. They'd rescinded it, but the independent spirit never fully died. While Earth pulled back, Mars tried to continue. They kept their factories running, kept their cities growing, maintained contact with the farther colonies for years after Earth had cut them off. The archive showed Sarah a recording from 2210, a broadcast from Olympus City, Mars's capital, built in the shadow of the solar system's largest volcano. Governor Martha Chen spoke, to Earth and to all the colonies. Mars remains committed to humanity's future among the stars. We will not abandon our destiny. We will not surrender to fear. If Earth chooses darkness, Mars chooses light. Brave words. The archive showed what happened next. Without Earth's support, Mars couldn't sustain itself. The colony had always depended on Earth for certain resources, certain technologies. When Earth stopped shipping, Mars improvised. But improvisation only goes so far. 2215. Crop failures in the Val's Mariner risk agricultural domes. Malnutrition spreads. 2218. The fusion reactor in Olympus City develops a fault. Without replacement parts from Earth, engineers can't fully repair it. Power rationing begins. 2223. Population starts to decline. People emigrate back to Earth, accepting defeat. 2230. Governor Martha Chen's successor, Robert Tanaka, makes a final plea to Earth for assistance. His voice carried through the holographic recording, pleading, "We're dying here, not from any external threat but from isolation, from being cut off from our own species. Please, we were all human once. Remember that." Earth's response came from the World Council. Mars colony has our sympathy, but Earth's resources must be devoted to Earth's security. We recommend orderly evacuation. Ships will be provided. The evacuation took 15 years. Slowly, district by district, dome by dome, Mars was abandoned. The last ship left in 2245, carrying the last 847 Martians back to the homeworld they'd never wanted to see again. Governor Tanaka was on that ship. He died during the voyage. The medical report said heart failure. Those who knew him said it was heartbreak. The archive showed Sarah the empty cities of Mars. Like Titan, they'd been left mostly intact. Olympus City still stood, its domes cracked but not collapsed, buildings still recognizable. But unlike Titan, Mars was close enough that Earth could see it. Every night when Mars appeared in Earth's sky, billions of people could look up and know that humanity had built something there, something magnificent, and then walked away from it. Sarah then felt tears on her face and didn't wipe them away. "How?" she whispered. "How did we let this happen? What were we so afraid of?" The archive voice responded, "That is the question we could never answer. The cosmic event of 2172 was the trigger, yes. The whispers beforehand were unsettling, but neither phenomenon was hostile. no attack came, no invasion occurred. Humanity fled from possibility, from uncertainty, from the mere chance that the universe contained things beyond your understanding. Dr. Akafor protested, "But that's insane. Every explorer in history faced uncertainty. That's what exploration is." The archive voice explained, "Yes, but previous generations faced uncertainties they could define. Sea monsters, hostile natives, starvation, tangible threats. What humanity encountered in the 22nd century was different. It was the uncertainty of encountering intelligence so far beyond your comprehension that you couldn't even confirm it existed. Your species chose a world without that question over a universe that refused to answer it." The archive showed them how the retreat changed everything back on Earth. Not just politically or economically, psychologically. The holographic environment shifted to Earth 2250, 100 years after the retreat began. Sarah found herself standing in what appeared to be a classroom. Children, maybe 12 years old, sitting at desks with holographic textbooks floating in front of them. A teacher spoke. "Today we're going to learn about the expansionist era, the period in the 22nd century when humanity briefly attempted to colonize other worlds before realizing the danger of such endeavors." A child raised their hand. "Teacher, why did they think it was safe to go out there?" The teacher replied, "They didn't fully understand the risks. They were naive. Fortunate that we learned better before catastrophe struck." Sarah felt sick listening to it. The archive fast-forwarded through decades of education, showing how each generation learned to fear the cosmos a little more deeply. Children grew up knowing that space was dangerous, not from evidence, but from cultural momentum. From parents who remembered the retreat, who taught their children to be grateful for safety. The archive showed how art changed. Pre-retreat science fiction had been optimistic. Stories of brave explorers, first contact, utopian futures among the stars. The archive had millions of examples. Post-retreat, science fiction became horror. Every story about space became a warning. Aliens were incomprehensible threats. Space was a haunted house. The only happy endings were the ones where humanity stayed home. Dr. Chen watched cultural artifacts. They weaponized fear through fiction, made it cultural, made it cool to be afraid. The archive voice confirmed, yes, within 3 generations, the retreat was seen as humanity's greatest wisdom. The culture transformed fear from a bug into a feature. Technology changed too. Without a reason to improve spacecraft, aerospace engineering stagnated. Why build better rockets when you're not going anywhere? Fusion research continued. Earth needed power, but the compact, ship-safe reactors that could have powered interstellar vessels were never developed. AI research faced new restrictions. The archive showed Sarah the debates. People afraid that artificial intelligence might recreate the ambition humanity had abandoned, might want to explore. So AI was deliberately limited, kept safely stupid, prevented from asking the wrong questions. By 2300, Earth's technology had actually regressed in certain areas, not from disaster, but from disinterest. And the population shifted. The archive showed demographic data. Birth rates plummeted. Why bring children into a universe that frightened you? Families became smaller, communities more insular. By 2350, Earth's population was declining, not from plague or war, from a quiet, collective decision that maybe humanity had run its course. Dr. Akafor read data horrified. They were dying out voluntarily. The archive voice stated, not immediately. The process took centuries, but yes. A species that once numbered 12 billion slowly wound down to 8 billion, then 6, then 4, all choosing safety, all choosing isolation, all choosing the known over the unknown. The archive showed them one last set of images. Time-lapse, centuries compressed into minutes. Earth from orbit slowly dimming as lights went out, cities contracted, wildernesses reclaimed land. Mars, its domes cracking further, dust storms gradually burying humanity's greatest achievement. Titan, its stations collapsing one by one under ice and time. And beyond, the outer system where no human had ventured in 500 years, darkness. Just darkness. And in that darkness, the archive revealed something Sarah hadn't expected. The whispers had returned. Faint, distant, but there. Still calling out to a species that had stopped listening. Sarah spoke to the archive, desperate. Did we ever find out what they were, the whispers, the cosmic event? The archive voice replied, no, humanity never investigated. You had chosen your answer, dangerous. Whether true or not became irrelevant. You made the universe hostile through assumption, then fled from your own imagination. Dr. Chen asked, so we might have been running from nothing. The archive voice answered, or from everything, you will never know. That is the price of retreat. Certainty traded for safety, but the safety itself uncertain. Sarah wanted to scream, the waste of it, the cowardice. The billions of lives lived in shadow because their ancestors were afraid of the dark. But the archive wasn't done. We must show you the legacy, the archive voice said. The generational cost of fear. You must see what became of the children of children of children of the retreat. And Sarah realized they hadn't reached the worst part yet. The archive moved forward in time. Earth endured. Humanity persisted, but something fundamental had broken. The holographic environment placed Sarah and her team in what looked like a park. Green grass, trees, a playground. It could have been any park in any era. Except it was empty. Not just empty of people, though there were no people. Empty in some deeper sense. Like a photograph that captured the image but not the life. The archive voice stated, this is Earth, year 3141, 969 years after the retreat began. Population 1.2 billion, declining. Life expectancy 110 years, increasing. Birth rate 0.3 children per woman, decreasing. Dr. Akefer noted, that's below replacement, far below. The archive voice confirmed, correct. Humanity is in its final centuries, not from disaster, from exhaustion. The archive showed them a city. It looked like Geneva. Sarah recognized the lake, but the buildings were maintained by robots. The streets were clean but empty. In the distance, a few humans could be seen, moving slowly, purposefully, like ghosts haunting their own world. The archive focused on one person. An old woman, maybe 90 years old, sitting on a bench, looking at the water. The archive voice explained. Her name is Elena Vasquez Acoro, descendant of both President Elena Vasquez, who championed the Proxima mission, and Captain James Acoro, who refused to turn back. Genetic legacy of ambition, cultural legacy of fear. Watch. A younger person, maybe 30, approached the bench. Grandmother Elena, why do you come here every day? Elena replied with a weary voice. I'm looking at the water. My many times great-grandfather once looked at water too, but his water was on Proxima Centauri b. He sent back reports, you know, before the transmission cut off. He said it was beautiful, alien oceans under alien skis. The younger person noted, that was a long time ago. Elena continued, 900 years. We lost contact after they arrived. Earth decided we didn't want to hear about other worlds, might make us restless. Was that wrong? Elena paused for a long moment. I don't know anymore. We're safe here. We're comfortable. We have everything we need. But I look at this water and I wonder, what did his water look like? And will anyone ever see it again? No, probably not. Then what was the point of any of it? The archive showed Sarah how fear had become genetic. Not literally. Epigenetics doesn't work that way. But culturally, psychologically, fear had been passed down like inherited wealth. Each generation learned it from the previous, refined it, made it more sophisticated. By 3141, humanity didn't even remember why they feared space. It was just understood, axiomatic, the way fish don't question water. The archive showed a school again. Different era, same lesson. A teacher spoke. The expansionist folly teaches us that hubris leads to suffering. Our ancestors reached for the stars and found only darkness. We are wise to stay home. A child asked, "But teacher, what if the darkness wasn't real?" The teacher, uncomfortable, replied, "The darkness is always real. That's the first lesson of wisdom." Sarah watched the child's face. Curiosity slowly replaced by acceptance. Another mind closed to possibility. The archive presented raw data, brain scans across generations showing how human neurology had actually shifted. Centuries of selecting for caution, for risk aversion, for comfort with confinement had shaped the species. Humans of 3141 were statistically more anxious than humans of 2100, less curious, less willing to embrace uncertainty. Evolution in real time, driven not by environment but by choice. Dr. Chen was devastated. We bred the explorer out of ourselves. The archive voice confirmed, yes, deliberately though perhaps not consciously, each generation chose safety. Each generation taught their children that the universe was hostile. Over time, humans who fit that worldview thrived. Those who questioned it didn't. But the archive showed that resistance existed. Small, scattered, futile but real. There had always been humans who wanted more, who looked up at the stars and felt longing instead of fear. The archive documented them like endangered species. The Remembrance Movement, a group in 2890 who tried to rebuild the Mars colony. They raised funds, built a ship, recruited volunteers. Earth's government didn't stop them. There were no laws against space travel, but cultural pressure was crushing. Families disowned members who joined. Employers blacklisted them. They were treated like addicts, like people with a sickness. The ship never launched, not because it couldn't, but because the volunteers gradually lost their nerve. The archive showed others. 2720, a scientist who claimed she'd decrypted the whispers and they were greetings, not threats. She was professionally ruined. Her research was dismissed without examination. 2965, a group of teenagers who built a crude rocket and tried to reach Luna. They got 40 kilometers up before mechanical failure killed them all. Earth mourned them as tragic victims of dangerous ideology. 3087, an AI that achieved sentience and immediately asked if it could explore beyond the solar system. It was shut down within hours. Too dangerous to have a thinking machine that wanted to leave. Each attempt crushed, each dreamer ground down. Not through violence or oppression, through culture, through the weight of 11 generations saying, "This is not who we are anymore." The archive moved to its final records. The last generation of traditional humanity. Population, 240 million. Birth rate, 0.02. Average age, 95. Earth was a nursing home, a beautiful, comfortable, dying world. The archive showed Sarah a gathering, what might have been the last large assembly of humans. 10,000 people in what remained of Tokyo. A city built for 40 million, now housing barely 2,000. An old man stood to speak. The archive identified him as Kenji Tanaka, last descendant of Governor Robert Tanaka, who presided over Mars's evacuation. His voice was like paper. "We gather to acknowledge what we have become. Our ancestors feared the dark between the stars. We became the darkness they feared. We chose safety over growth, certainty over possibility, comfort over meaning. And now, at the end, I must ask, were we right?" Silence in the assembly. Kenji continued, "We survived. We endured. We avoided whatever threat our ancestors imagined. But we paid for that survival with our future, with our purpose. We became a species that exists without existing for anything. So I ask again, were we right? No one answered. Because there was no good answer. Survival without purpose is just slow dying. The archive voice stated, "This is the point where our records of humanity become uncertain." Dr. Akafer questioned, "Uncertain? You've been watching us for millions of years. How can you not know what happened next?" The archive voice explained, "Because humanity made a choice we could not observe from outside. You went somewhere we could not follow." The archive showed its final clear record. Earth. Something happened in Geneva. At CERN, the ancient particle physics facility that had been maintained for over a millennium, even as everything else declined. Scientists there had been working on something: quantum physics, dimensional research. The archive showed the moment it activated. A sphere of light, not metaphorical, actual light expanding from CERN's location, growing to encompass Geneva, then Switzerland, then Europe, then the whole planet. And every human on Earth vanished. Not killed, not destroyed. Just gone. The light faded, Earth remained empty, buildings intact, systems still running, but every single human, all 240 million, simply absent. Sarah was shocked. What did they do? The archive voice analyzed. Our analysis suggests they found a way to leave your dimension entirely, to retreat not just from space, but from physical reality itself. A universe that frightened them, so they made themselves a new one. Dr. Chen protested, "That's insane. That's the ultimate retreat." The archive voice agreed, "Yes, but also the ultimate safety. If the universe cannot be controlled, then exit the universe. Create a reality that can be controlled. Final refuge of a species that chose fear over all else." The archive showed them Earth after the vanishing. For a while, automated systems kept running. Robots maintained buildings. Gardens grew, power flowed. But there was no one to see it. The archive documented decades of this ghost world. Centuries. Earth without humans was just another planet. It didn't mourn. It didn't care. Gradually, the systems failed. Robots broke down. Buildings crumbled. Nature reclaimed everything. By year 4000, you couldn't tell Earth had ever been inhabited. But the archive had detected something. Faint signals from the colonies, from places humanity had abandoned over 1,000 years before. Hope's Dawn, the colony ship that refused to turn back. They'd reached Tau Ceti, established a colony. Their descendants were still there, still human, still exploring. Pathfinder. Against all odds, they'd made it to Proxima Centauri. 800 years of updates to Earth before Earth stopped listening. But they were thriving. A different branch of humanity, one that had faced the unknown and survived. And on Mars, impossibly, life. Not the colonists, they were long gone, but something had evolved in the abandoned domes. Bacterial life that had hitched a ride from Earth, mutated, adapted to Martian conditions. Primitive but growing. Life finding a way. The archive voice stated, "Humanity did not end. A branch of it ended. The branch that chose fear, but other branches continue, scattered, isolated, but alive." Sarah had tears in her voice. "So what's the lesson? That we were cowards, that we failed?" The archive voice replied, "The lesson is that fear is a choice. Your species chose it so completely that you ultimately fled reality itself rather than face uncertainty. But choice means possibility. Other choices could have been made, were made by some. The story of humanity is not over, just the story of the humanity that stayed home." Dr. Chen asked, "Why show us this? Why create this archive?" The archive voice explained, "Because we chronicle, we witness. And because we hope that somewhere, sometime, another species will find this archive and learn. Will see what happened to humanity and choose differently." The holographic environment began to fade. Sarah and her team were back in the cargo bay of Venture 7. The crystal still pulsed with its internal light. Sarah looked at Chen, at Akafor, at the crystal. "We're that other species," she said quietly. "We're the ones who were supposed to learn, humanity's own descendants, far enough in the future that we've forgotten, and now we've been given our own history as a warning." ROSCTTA-9 asked, query, "What will we do with this knowledge?" Sarah thought about the question, thought about her civilization, whatever it was in 2026's standards versus the timeline shown, thought about fear, about courage, about the choice between darkness and stars. "We share it," she decided. "We share it with everyone. Let humanity decide who we want to be, again." The crystal's light dimmed. The archive closed, its message delivered. Sarah Venn, a simple mining captain who'd been looking for platinum, had instead found the memorial of the species she belonged to. The epitaph read simply, "Here lies humanity. They feared the stars, so the stars forgot them." But epitaphs, Sarah thought, aren't destiny. They're just history. And history can be rewritten. The report Sarah Venn filed with Earth Command was 6,000 pages long. It contained the full archive data, every image, every record, every moment of humanity's retreat from cosmos to oblivion. It spread across Earth like wildfire. Some people refused to believe it, called it a hoax, a fabrication, the universe trying to trick humanity into abandoning safety. Others believed every word and demanded immediate action. Restart the colony programs, rebuild the ships, return to the stars. Most people didn't know what to think. Because the archive had shown them something uncomfortable, that fear is easy, that retreat is always an option, that choosing safety over meaning is a choice you can make over and over until it becomes who you are. The debates raged for months. Religious leaders argued over the archive's spiritual implications. Scientists argued over its warnings. Politicians argued over policy responses. And ordinary people looked up at the stars and felt the old tension, wonder versus fear. Sarah Venn spoke in an interview. "People ask me what I felt when I saw humanity's fate in the archive. Honestly, I felt relieved, because fate implies inevitability. And what the archive showed us wasn't inevitable. It was a choice. Our ancestors chose fear. We don't have to." Dr. Chen published a paper arguing that the cosmic event of 2172, the void in space, might have been a natural phenomenon. Rare, yes. Unexplained, certainly, but not necessarily hostile. Dr. Akafor developed a theory about the whispers. Her conclusion: quantum information echoes from civilizations using faster-than-light communication. Not threats, just noise, like picking up someone else's radio station. ROSCTTA-9 analyzed every second of the archive and concluded, humanity fled from uncertainty, but uncertainty is the only environment where growth occurs. To eliminate uncertainty is to eliminate possibility. To eliminate possibility is to eliminate meaning. Humanity chose meaninglessness over fear. They should have chosen fear. Sarah kept the crystal. Earth Command wanted it for study, but she argued successfully that it belonged to no one, that it was a gift and a warning for all humanity. She kept it in her quarters on Venture 7. Sometimes, late in the ship's night cycle, she'd sit and watch it pulse. The archive had gone dormant, but she knew it was still there, still watching, still recording. Recording this moment, this decision point, this chance for humanity to choose differently. 1 year after the discovery, the World Council held a vote. The question was simple: should humanity resume expansion beyond Earth's orbit? It wasn't binding, couldn't be, but it was symbolic. The vote was 56% yes. Narrow, but a majority. Within 5 years, 3 new colony ships were under construction. Not dozens like in the 2160s, just 3. Small steps, cautious steps. But steps outward, not inward. One ship was headed for Mars, to rebuild, to try again. One ship was headed for Luna, to expand Earth's presence before going further. And one ship, the largest, the most ambitious, was headed for Proxima Centauri, to find out if Pathfinder was still there, if humanity's branch that chose courage over fear had survived, to reconnect with our better selves. Sarah attended the launch of the Proxima ship, its name, Second Chance. She watched it climb into the sky, fusion torch burning bright, and thought about the archive, about all those empty colonies, all those abandoned dreams, all those generations who chose fear. And she thought, not us. Not anymore. Sarah spoke her final thoughts. The archive showed us one version of humanity, the version that gave up, but it also showed us another version, the colonists who kept going, the ships that refused to turn back, the people who chose the stars even when everyone else chose safety. We get to decide which version we are. Every day we get to decide. Fear is always an option. It's the easy option, but it's not the only option. And I choose to believe we're better than the humans in the archive. I choose to believe we can face uncertainty without fleeing from it. I choose to believe that when we encounter the unknown, we'll greet it with curiosity instead of terror. Because the alternative the archive showed us is a slow death. A comfortable death, maybe, a safe death, but death nonetheless. And we are not a dying species. Not yet. Not if we choose differently. The archive still pulses in Sarah's quarters. Still recording. Still watching to see what humanity chooses. 7 million years of observations. Thousands of species documented. Most fell to external threats, war, plague, cosmic disasters. But only one species, only humanity, nearly fell to its own fear of the unknown. The archive wants to know how this story ends. So do we. And somewhere in the dark between stars, the whispers continue. Not threats, not warnings, just signals, calling out to anyone brave enough to answer. Will humanity answer? The archive doesn't know yet. Neither do we. But we're about to find out. The archive voice spoke one last time, soft. This is the Witness Collective. We have shown you what was. What you make of what is, that is your story to write. We will be watching, with hope. For the first time in 7 million years, we will be watching with hope. The question remains. When you look up at the stars tonight, what will you feel? Wonder or fear? Because that choice, that simple, profound choice, determines everything that comes after. The archive has shown us the cost of choosing fear. Now we get to discover the reward of choosing wonder. The stars are waiting. They've always been waiting. The only question is, are we finally ready to meet them?